In the center of the mausoleum rises a couch, 2 feet 5 inches in height, 12 feet in length, and 5 feet in width. On this couch is extended the figure of a man. It is probably life size and measures 9 feet 4 inches in length. The limbs are finely proportioned and disposed in an easy and graceful manner. The arms are folded across the breast, and the fingers clasp a bunch of leaves resembling oak, which are reproduced with great fidelity to nature. The figure is partially nude, a mantle or scarf crossing the breast and falling over the loins in graceful fold. The face is one of the great strength and beauty, and the outline and contour are decidedly Israelitish. The head is covered with a winged helmet elegantly casped and kept in position by rods of the same metal. At each corner of the mausoleum rises a covered pyramidal column surmounted by caps that are unmistakably Dori, which I guess is like a kind of an English or European style. Again, you keep getting the Greek overlays, winged helm, everything about this, and the Hebraic carvings on the inscriptions. Carved out of the solid rock and embellished with bas reliefs, on the front of each is raised a scroll covered with written characters similar to those on the panels of the mausoleum. On the walls of the room opposite to the entrance are painted 25 faces. They are faded and blurred, but still distinct enough to be deciphered. The colors used are red, yellow, black, white, and are mixed with oil. The portraits are exquisite in a superior manner, and the anatomical proportions of the features is preserved to an exact degree. The explorers opened one of the small tombs. It contained a splendidly preserved mummy, swathed in cloth, covered with a thick varnish, which emits a pleasant aromatic odor, not unlike balsam of fir. The mummies measured 9 feet 1 inch in length, and the cloth with which it is wrapped, although of coarse texture, is skillfully woven. The hair sticking to the cloth of your correspondent has some of it left, stuck to the cloth, and while this article is being written, it is black, curly, and of fine texture. Again, I'm fast forwarding, so I apologize. A square package at the head of the tomb, wrapped in the varnished cloth, contained a book of 100 leaves of thin copper, fastened loosely at the top, and crowded with finely engraved characters similar to those already described. And I'll end it there because it just keeps going. But yeah, a tomb full of 9-foot-tall mummies with beauty and elegance and architecture that we can't copy, and no explanation.
Yeah, it's insane. Even a single human statue, you would think, if you asked anybody on the street, has that ever been found in America, they'd probably say no. And then here's just one example underground, holding these leaves resembling oak. That last part you read about the box that was
at his head.
Yeah, and then they took this box and they unwrapped the cloth from it. And what was inside? It was a book of leaves?
A book of copper pages. Thinly pressed copper. 100 pages with written characters on it. Basically, probably a book of the man's life. And what's crazy is that I've done a video talking about the Book of Mormon and how, Joseph Smith found a book just like this in a mound in New York City. And that's where they got the story of the Book of Mormon that he translated. And when you break that down, the inscriptions on the copper are almost a perfect mirror of Micmac. Micmac is an Indian tribe found from Nova Scotia all the way down into the Virginias. And Micmac, a tribe still alive and well today, have written many books about this, and they show that their language correlates almost perfectly with Egyptian. And when you start to, again, do this kind of pre-Babel breakdown of languages, which I've done many episodes on, and I did a whole series with Dr. Longo, Old World Florida, we show the correlation between Phoenician and Hebrew. It's endless, and it's pretty undeniable. There have been plenty of amazingly scholared, well-written books about this. So you're finding this kind of biblical existence of 9-foot plus tall giants that they are saying in the 1800s are Israelitish, which in that term or time frame meant tall, dark skin, black curly hair, and mummies. And yeah, there are more mummies found in America in this time frame by a gigantic margin than there are in Europe or Egypt. It's not even comparable. In fact, the Smithsonian was caught stealing mummies from Colorado and shipping them to Europe.
Yeah, I heard you mention that the governor of Colorado was begging the federal government, hey, can you do something about this?
Yeah, and they're like, no, they're paying us.
Yeah, that's so gnarly that there's documentation of that. And you have to imagine that's just one example of probably many that we don't have documented. But that is so interesting to think that Joseph Smith, he just found some Native American history book. And I did a deep dive on him with another guest, and there's good reason to believe he was using psychedelics on his congregations to make them see visions and make them think he was special. So like this guy who's a fraudster just stumbles across one of these things that
he was a John Dee. He was a John Dee reader. He was well aware. In fact, he used the same lens that John Dee used to translate Enochian. Did you know that?
I knew he had some occult knowledge, but I also was under the impression that he was sort of drugging people to make his
I've heard of those things
like more than what they were.
Yeah, and he was. I mean, you have to again look at again. I'm not. I don't want to. My wife is Mormon. I'm quite open about this. I love their history. Their history is the closest to what I'm finding, to be honest. They describe many of the biblical stories happening here in America, and that America was densely populated, and that there was a cataclysm, and God wiped the slate. This is exactly kind of what I've been describing. The details, it's easy to get lost in the details, and I certainly don't play too much with any of that. But you have to understand this time frame, right? They're just finding all kinds of crazy stuff. And it was probably much more I don't want to say documented, but at least by word of mouth spoken of. Like, oh man, they're finding not only giants, but crazy stuff that no one has an explanation for. And it was very well documented that there was a biblical existence among these mound builders, quote, mound builders. And there's many different kinds of mound builders. They prove that. But yeah, just seeing the overlays between that. And yeah, he used a seeing stone, just like John Dee. He was a very well-spoken of astrologer. In fact, that's what got him in a lot of trouble, was that he was preaching astrology to his congregation. But yeah, you can find a lot of, when you look through their lineage and the people that moved out west with them and the things they were talking about looking for their Eden, they were looking for Eden in Missouri, in this same area that we've talked about. He was well aware that there was buried history here. Again, going back to what he translated in the books that he eventually started to, translate, that America was the promised land, so to say. And you read the caption of my previous video, and that just correlates again coincidentally. That wasn't my goal to talk about that, but yeah, you just see the things they're finding not only in these tombs but these mounds, and looking at them here in 2023. It definitely, I think the timing couldn't be better to facilitate people seeing what these people were writing about 150 years ago or more.
Yeah, I would say so. I've actually heard the case made that the elite know that we are going to stumble upon the truth, and it takes usually X amount of years. And this is when they start looking at, I don't know if they can trigger a reset or if they just happen to coincide, but we have the Great Reset, Agenda 2030, and all this information is coming out. Imagine what 7 more years is going to look like. You can almost extrapolate out where we'll be with our knowledge in 7 more years, and where the whole system will be collapsing, unraveling economically, politically. The whole circus is falling apart. People are losing their faith in it. And
just looking at your program leading up to COVID, the writing was on the wall. I mean, we would have never guessed that that's the way it went down, but you've had enough guests and I've read enough material that now that we've made it through that and we're moving towards the next calamity, so to say, that, it just seems like it's just unstoppable at this point. It's just what's the damage going to be? What's the fallout, like you said?
Can you believe it, people? A video clip and a peek into how that sweet THC sausage is made. For some people, I'm sure it's nice to put a face to the name, so I started making clips that are a little more YouTube friendly than the full show tends to be. Get the full show on any podcasting platform. I prefer to keep it audio only, so we have a more decentralized distribution for a controversial show, and also so I can edit out the ums and ahs and barking dogs and all the things that happen when a person records in their home environment. And then if you really like the show, you can sign up for THC Plus, and instead of 1 hour interviews, you get the full 2 hour interview for just $8. I think that's a better deal, more of a win-win than asking you to support the show by booking a therapy session or buying generic Viagra. It's getting weird out there, folks. So just go to the highersidechats.com or click the link at the top of any set of show notes, and all your wildest dreams will come true. All right? All right.